speak as the chairman of the Hyde Park School Board as opposed to speaking to us as a representative of Hyde Park Church.
Can there be harmony without truth? It's a yes/no question.
How has the pastor of your church never been in my son or any of my kids' faces? So for a direction that you want to go to grow your church, you've done a horrible job in the 6 years I've been here.
This is a disgrace. There's got to be a solution here. There's got to be a lot of solutions, and there's got to be something positive that can come from this. And God's not finished here. There's work to be done, and we all ought to figure out how to do it right now.
You start with an apology. You don't need to apologize to me. You need to fix it. Apologize to my kids. This is every night.
It is the nature of man to choose, at times, the wrong over the right.
You fired us. What did we do wrong?
Things get in the way of the mission, and it's pride, I think it's money, and I think it's a loss of focus.
The church thought nobody was going to be paying attention. They would just replace the board, and that would be that, and we would move on. And
You won't. I am at the meeting. You're still not answering the question. You responded to me. And well, speak. Tell us why did you change out the board?
This is not positive moving forward for the school.
Do we need to talk to the church then?
Change the bylaws. In the absence of truth, what are we supposed to do? Just continue to be frustrated?
You are a customer of the school.
Answer the question.
We're not a small faction.
The Christian community is going to have rifts.
why are we having these problems?
It's almost like they're jealous that the school is so successful.
When it became evident that the school board was going to be swapped out, the former board, the one composed of current and former parents, took some steps to ensure the safety of the school. The Hyde Park School Foundation is a foundation board set up explicitly to control the school's excess finances that are not in the current operating budget. The money the foundation is in control of usually comes from large donations, or, in recent years, interest-earning accounts. When the former school board saw what was likely to come, they placed themselves, along with a few other Hyde Park School parents, onto the board of the HPS Foundation, in order to still be in control of the funds. However, the former board still saw some danger. The foundation's bylaws stated that if the school were to ever shut down or to go out of business, all of the school's finances would be inherited by the church. The former board, now the HPS Foundation Board, knew this, so they created a failsafe, the Foundation 2. In the Foundation 2, the bylaws clearly state that the money controlled could only be used for school purposes, and if the school were to close, the money would be used towards a new school or another existing school deemed acceptable.
The purpose of setting up Foundation 2 was to make sure, simplest way to say this, is to make sure that the money that was designated for Hyde Park schools was stayed and protected and available for Hyde Park schools only. And the only way we could do that was to set up a separate foundation with a separate board and separate bylaws that indicate that those funds can only be used for Christian educational purposes. So to explain the lawsuit against the foundation is to explain the lawsuit against us, against the former board. So they're suing which is very confusing because they're suing the old board that took the actions to transfer the money into the foundation, which, by the way, the very first transfer into the foundation was approved by Kent Jennings, who was the sole member at the time. Or actually, I don't know if I could say it was approved, but I think he stopped attending board meetings at that time, but he was part of the email chain that said, hey, we're going to have a vote tonight to approve a transfer of funds into the foundation. He didn't attend that vote. So, but it passed with a quorum. So there were 5 board members that took the actions we took to protect the funds for the school, and one of those board members still has one more term. They couldn't remove her. We know they wanted to remove her, but they couldn't remove her from the board, so she has to serve out this remaining term. So they determined that they were going to sue us, the former board members, but not one of the individuals who also took action. So that kind of begs the question of standing, whether or not they actually have the right to sue the people they're suing. So that's kind of up for debate. But then they also sued the 2 foundations. The reason they didn't name the board members that they're suing is because they don't have the bylaws. They don't know who the foundation members are. So we think, my guess is, and I think it's a popular guess among the people on our side of the lawsuit and our legal counsel, is that they're probably suing us just simply to get their hands on the documents so they can see what the bylaws are and who the board members are. I would assume that once that's turned over, there's a good chance they drop the lawsuit. They just need to know who those people are. I could be totally wrong. I could be totally giving them the benefit of the doubt. They may have no intention of dropping the lawsuit. But I'm assuming that lawsuit was filed to get a hold of the bylaws.
Ministry burnout is a big problem in any church, organization, or nonprofit. It always has been. Sometimes it's just the nature of the job. Sometimes it's the people. Judge Larson even touched on it in his report. The number one reason pastors leave the ministry is due to its church members' resistance to the leadership. If the church fails to act, it risks losing many more church leaders. Well, apparently Hyde Park Baptist did fail to act. Within the last 5 years, 12 high-profile church staff have departed, 10 of those being pastors. Out of those 12, 6 were hired in that same 5-year span, and only 2 out of the 12 were retirements. We reached out to several former pastors from Hyde Park and received some fairly startling comments. One former pastor said that they did not feel included nor personally supported by the pastor. Another said it was like there was an unspoken fear of being the next casualty of turnover within the church. One, in reference to a personal meeting with Bowman, told us, "I questioned him, and he was done with me." But the staff weren't the only ones leaving. After the deacon hearings, one of the deacons involved was quoted as saying, "Oh my gosh, my pastor just threw me under the bus." During one of the other deacon hearings, the deacon on trial was asked if he and his wife were going to stay at the church. How do you stay after that? We've heard stories of numerous members who've left in the past few years, and even more who've left since the school situation became public in August.
It's so stunning to me that even those members that continue to go to that church and the 3 to 4 men that are advising Dr. Bowman at this point, who are the leads against the school, it's stunning to me that they have not opened their eyes to see what they have done internally themselves to kill the whole spirit of this church. This church used to be a cornerstone of Austin, Texas. It's in the center of Austin. It's there between the university and downtown where you have high tech and you have 80,000 students. And it is contracting. How does that happen? But yet there is no action within the church to change. I sat down with Kent Jennings and was very excited to tell him that we were in a position to make a contribution. And in that discussion, I had mentioned to him that just a portion of that I wanted him to allocate to growing a college ministry. And so over time, it then became apparent to Virginia and I that the church was not going to follow through on, I would say, its promise, if you will, to a college ministry. Again, this is all verbal, and all of a sudden the church has said, well, you know, you should have had written response from you, Gil, that was your condition. That is basically what started the lawsuit, but even more than that is that eventually, and this was difficult information to get because again, this had to do with the financial status of the church. And even though we gave the money in 2018, we didn't start to hear into late 19 into 20 that I believe nearly 100% of our gift did not leave the four walls of that church. It was used for salaries. It was used to balance the budget. If it hadn't been for our gift, it's my understanding that the church would have been in a loss position of perhaps $300,000 to $500,000. And that is my understanding. But we can't get, again, supportive information from the church, but we understand that they also gave themselves bonuses at a time when the church was not going to perform to the budget. When does that happen? So you start to get the feeling that our gift evaporated in less than 7-8 months. And that was not the intention of our gift. The intention of our gift was A, to start a college ministry, and B, to be used as a church, we would think, on outreach programs, missions, the pantry, other ministries. But it's our understanding not $1 went to an outside ministry. We were told that there was an outreach, and it was to a church, I believe, in San Marcos. And a gift was given to that church, and it's my understanding that it's a church that Kent Jennings' son is a member of and maybe part of the staff. I think it was deception on part of how they received that money joyfully, big smiles, and then carry out one action that we asked them.
In an attempt to try and prevent any further reputational damage, Hyde Park School's head of schools, Leanne Messer, was put under a strict no-talking order regarding subjects such as the church, the school board, and accreditation. This, of course, shouldn't come as a surprise to readers of the Larson Report.
I believe that when things started getting ugly and a little bit hairy, Leanne dug her heels in and really went to bat for the best interests of the school. I believe that the church probably didn't appreciate that because she stood in the way of the church being able to do whatever they wanted to do as far as the school is concerned. So I think that that might be why we have a little bit of, I don't want to say animosity. Animosity is a really ugly word, but you know, I feel that there's definitely a little bit of this between the church and Miss Messer at this point.
It should be noted that the only women in pastoral positions at the church in the past 10 years were both in the role of the children's minister, and both women held the title children's minister instead of children's pastor, even though the same level positions such as student pastor or college pastor were labeled as such. The female children's ministers were also not permitted to perform baptisms, even for people directly in their ministry. Naturally, these things have brought up an important issue.
I think the one thing, yes, if we lose our accreditation, we're gone. If we don't, though, I want an assurance from the board, from y'all, because this is well within your power, that you are going to do everything in your power to keep that woman right there and all.
So I'm going to ask you point blank. When we see contracts in February or whenever they come out, will Leanne be the head of schools for 2022-23 school year?
She's currently under contract till then, you know that, Barry. So, yes.
What about the
No
teachers?
reason to think not.
I mean, this is much bigger than Leanne's, the teachers. We got teachers.
In December, the school received a letter from ACTABS, the accreditation agency, updating them on their status. The letters mentioned some bullet points for change in order for the school to keep accreditation, such as harmony between the two organizations and no turnover in the school's administration. But at the same time,
is your intention, I find it really hard to believe that your intention is to keep ACTABS when you're filing a complaint against the organization. Is that a true rumor? Can you speak to anything about that?
Ma'am, we have not filed a complaint against ACTABS.
Have you called in a state senator to say anything about ACTABS?
No, we have not taken action. What's taken action is 3 lawsuits in the community by a number of members in this community.
Right, and one lawsuit that you filed.
And one lawsuit that we filed against the foundation. That activity has caused attention in a number of places.
So nobody within the church or the board has called in a state senator to tell them what's going on with ACTABS?
We have not had any communication with anybody in the government or any other agency about this situation. We've been trying to deal with it very upfront with you as a community.
when we set out to tell this story, we set our sights on motives. Why did these things happen? Who was making these decisions? Was there any justification for the events that occurred? Honestly, we're not sure if we answered any of these questions. But frankly, does it even matter? When decisions like these affect so many people, positively or negatively, do motives cease to matter at all?
Well, nobody really knows their motivation, okay? You can just sort of look at what actions have been taken and try to surmise what's the motivation.
So regarding the future plans for Hyde Park schools, all we can do is speculate there. They haven't indicated anything to anybody in terms of their plans for the school. So, our assumptions are everything from finish out this year, shut the school down, raid the coffers. That's the nuclear option. If they take the school over and decide to convert it to a covenant school, which is fully within their right, then they should tell us that.
I think, unfortunately, a couple of things, and we'll see this in all institutions. It's not limited to Hyde Park Church or Hyde Park School. Unfortunately, our corporate entities, the one that you're in here, our nonprofit entities, things get in the way of the mission. And it's pride, I think it's money, and I think it's a loss of focus.
If there is truly one mission that is successful, an outreach program that's successful for the church, it would be the school. And again, when we, all of us men and women that have left the church, try to wrap our mind around why the church is so adversarial to the school and is willing openly to take down the school by not getting its accreditation, is stunning. And I can almost guarantee if the school fails, there will be no hard feelings by the men and women at that church regarding the school.
The frustration you're hearing at the end of the day is that in the choice to seat a board that walked away from all of those norms and conventions and went back to, it's going to be a little bit closed, we're not going to communicate, there will be no parent representation, and we're going to be a narrow lane of conversation, discussion, and disclosure. And what you're getting is parents saying, why? And the reality is that nobody can answer that because we're no longer part of the process. We didn't seat the board. We were asked to nominate a slate. We attempted that. The slate stalled for a variety of reasons. And we wake up one day and there's a new board seated. Again, your prerogative, church prerogative, you exercise it. We all would do that if we have a specific outcome in mind. And clearly, there is a specific outcome in mind. And I think what you're hearing frustration around is transparency of what that is. I'm one of those people that look, if the way we governed or the way we led or the way we served was not to the church's liking, I welcome feedback. It's a gift. Tell us. We're sorry we didn't do a better job than we were tasked with doing. That's great, but we've never heard a word. And time, energy, resources, commitment, heart is invested big time in this school over a very long period of time. And I think what everybody's feeling is summarily dismissed. Your input's not welcome, your participation isn't welcome. Send your kids, send your money. That's the extent of the relationship, Randy. And that's, honestly, I'm just trying to help. That's what we're hearing. And I think what people just want, and you've been around the block several times in situations where representation by constituent groups is important. I think this group feels underrepresented.
The church has kept running. New pastors to replace the old ones, new committee members appointed, events planned. They even brought a guest in to preach in late January 2022, Dr. Ronnie Floyd. You may recognize that name as the former CEO of the Southern Baptist Convention, who, less than a year prior, had resigned his position after audio leaked of his thoughts on sexual abuse survivors.
And I'm not scared by anything the survivors would say, okay? I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the base. How can we, I just want to preserve the base. And that's what I would say to y'all. As you think through the strategy, do everything you can to remember the base.
Well, what I would say.
The school has also kept running. Teachers have been paid, resources have been bought, football coaches have been hired. Where does the church go from here? Where does the school go from here? Is it possible for both organizations to even exist together at this point?
One of the things that has made me so sad, I've gone through so many emotions ever since I got the email saying our board was replaced, but one thing that has made me very sad is that I feel like this is just a grown-up argument over money. And really what matters most are all those kids who are going to be collateral damage. They're not really the ones that people are focusing on, and they need to be the ones that people are focusing on.
Once you've gone through a conflict, if it is properly resolved, properly dealt with, the bounds of improvement that can be made through that is pretty phenomenal. And I'm hoping that what we see here is the story that can be told. The real story, hopefully, is there was an unfortunate rift. The parties recognized it. The parties came together, and now we have an even better institution in Hyde Park School because of it.
Everybody should know that, you know, if you believe in something, you should fight for it. If it's you know, a noble cause. That's what we feel like we're doing. We don't feel like we're fighting because we just want to fight. We feel like there's something here worth fighting for.
You know, at times I try to think, how does the church get out of this? How does the church completely turn a direction where they could believe they could grow? And I think it's a lost cause at this point. Too many of the substantial members, the big givers, the lifers, I mean, I could go down a list that's just stunning, to hear of these people that have left that church. Hyde Park, in the world that it is in today, is dead. That church no longer serves the people of Hyde Park and the people of Austin. Nothing changes within the walls of that church.